Ankit, thank you so much for this chat.
Thank you, Alok.
I'm going to begin with probably take you a bit historical here first, Ankit, which is that at least now investing for the last 9 years in SaaS myself, at least I remember that SaaS in India has always traditionally been about SMB focus, low ticket, remote sales, all to US. That's been the mantra in general for SaaS in India. You, on the other hand, started with a company that is targeting large financial institutions, which is a tough segment to start with. How did you get started with this, or was this something you pivoted into? So would love to understand how you landed into this space in the first place.
I think very relevant question, and exactly as you said, when we started, we got the same gyan that enterprise sales needs gray hairs. You guys are young, energetic, but this is not for you. And we were also just actually targeting SMBs both in India and outside India, fintechs and the likes. But I think there was this pivotal moment when we won an RBI award in 2016 mid, which led to actually inbounds coming from the likes of Bajaj and ICICI. And they got converted through inbounds. And that is when we kind of let go of this known truth that, enterprise can't be sold to. And we said, there is apparent that this can be done by a young team and a young company with no credibility. That is when we truly said, maybe everyone else is getting it wrong. And enterprise, of course, have a problem to solve and we should work for them. We realize, like I think a lot of other people realize, is that amount of contract or size of contract never is a problem in enterprise. Your product maturity has to very quickly move close to what they are trying to solve for.
Given that you talked about the product maturity, would love to understand what was the first product you launched? When did you launch it? How long a time did it take you to build that product? Because as you said, large enterprises are not something, they're not like consumers that you throw an app to them with 7 bugs, then you throw another release 3 days later. So how did you get to that point of launching your first product, which had enough maturity for these large financial institutions?
To be very honest, some of them bought us before we launched the product, but we had that product roadmap and vision. We were just doing APIs and we realized that financial service organizations were just not ready to consume them directly, and they needed a software product or layer to really use them effectively. And that was, of course, the aha moment. And then we actually created it's not really a product, but like maybe a shell of a product with the backend not really ready, but it was a flow. User could see the flow. And that is what we got the bank to buy into. Banks have a lot of requirements on security, on deployment structures. Like one of the biggest advantages that SaaS companies have is that they have to just build one single cloud software and then they can be very agile. The enterprise companies always have these challenges that you have to figure out a way to deploy it in a way that the customer wants. So that is a problem we also had to then face. We had to change the product in a way that customer comfort deployments can be done, which of course is too extremely technical and boring, but it requires a lot of hard work and changes, a lot of security audit. We have to actually go and get ISO 9001 very early in our journey, and like a lot of other startups, we built a very large infosec. Even today, we have a very large infosec team. So all of that investment, which cloud SaaS never has to do, is something we had to do. And I think also good sales and pre-sales, like eventually enterprise is a lot more about what look and feel do you give rather than your actual product, unlike normal SaaS, where trial is super critical. So even that maturity in sales and pre-sales is, I think, what we really, really needed to crack to get to this enterprise ready version of Signsy.
How did you build that credibility and trust with ICICI or your first couple of customers? And I mean, see, sometimes once you have 10 large customers, that credibility is already built. It's the first couple that is very hard. Yeah. And in particularly something which is in a space which is in a highly regulated area. So how did you build that trust in the first place?
As you know, Arpit is a lawyer. So from day one, our sales was very techno-legal. We used to always talk the language of the bank. And they often actually get companies who come to the bank and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Without really understanding that the bank is not doing, because They fear certain regulatory clause somewhere, etc., etc. So you shouldn't say that users want this and hence do it, because the bank guy is not very is of course agreeing with you that users want it, but he also understands that there's this regulatory clause that my regulation team won't agree to if I change this flow. That I think was one thing where the business guy thought, yeah, okay, this is a team I can take to my other stakeholders because they're talking the same language and they will not get swarmed or they will not get lost in the din. And I think second, or maybe it was the first, is that we won an RBI Award 1. And then IDRBT, which is one of RBI's organization, we got very engaged with them. So there were a lot of forums where we were there and very senior bankers were there. So they started that. I think RBI trust slightly rubbed off. Then we won a award from MAS in Singapore, is again their regulatory organization. So I think from beginning we were very, very regulatory kind of company. We said no to business many times. I remember e-sign, there was Supreme Court judgment in 2017, and we told the bank we'll not sell this product because as of today we believe this is illegal, and if you're using this product you would be illegal, and even though we are losing business, there are other vendors who will do this for you, but I would not sell you a product which I believe you are not legal. And that I think also rubbed off on the banks. They always believe that, okay, if Scienzy is giving me something, they have done their due diligence and I don't have to double check whether the legality and regulatory backup of that product. So I think those things which we did in the initial journey of, I think 2016 to 2018, I think really made our credibility. There is a company who understands regulation and legal and will not go wrong on that.
Look, the problem that you are solving for banks, they were solving it in some ways even at that point. Maybe through some large vendors, through in-house efforts, combination of all of those. As a new startup, when you began to sell to them, one is the need, but the second is a differentiation vis-a-vis other options that they have. How did you solve for the second? In a sense, how did you differentiate yourself? And number two, how did you communicate that differentiation to them?
It's a great question. I think one of the questions that always outside in people think is that, banks will build it themselves, right? There's always this thing, themselves. So I think one thing that probably I understood from my past experience working in Citi and MetLife is that no bank has anything called themselves. This themselves is actually some other vendor who is probably very deeply embedded in the bank. And I think outside in, many people again try and see somebody else as a competition. But your real competition when you're selling to a bank is these embedded vendors and not some other startup who's maybe competing with you. And so your sales had to be very, very focused, or your sales pitch had to be very focused around the problems they were facing with these embedded vendors. So I think there are two things which even today, by the way, is our narrative. So we realize one is upfront cost.
Yeah.
All of these vendors would charge you this upfront 30% even before they deliver. Second, they would take very long to deliver. Third, every time a change was there because of maybe regulation, they would go and say software needs changes, so you need to pay me by CR, you need to pay me service charges.
Yeah.
So we realized that this is a model that banks are bleeding on and they feel this is a huge problem. So we came with this view of saying that this is a no-code workflow platform where they will not charge you upfront license, we'll just charge you per onboarding. When there are changes will come into the app. You don't have to worry about regulatory legal changes. So we told them this is like a no-code SaaS platform. Why not just pure SaaS? Because for an enterprise, pure SaaS doesn't work. It's too generic for it to work. And completely custom coding is something they are bleeding from. So no-code SaaS is where I think we found a niche. And even today, that's our sales pitch. Unlike whoever you're working with, you can have very custom looking workflows without using a coder, go live in days and weeks versus months, and have no upfront cost, pay as you go, don't have to budget for IT cost. It can be just an OpEx that you pay about. So that I think is the, apart from whatever technical differentiations you can put in sales pitches, I think that is the number one differentiation compared to the other vendors that bank is working with. Now from competition from outside, I think, yes, there can be product differentiations, but at least what we feel, it's a lot about brand. Even today in India, even customers who don't work with us, they are like, at the right price, we want to work with Scienzy. We have heard a lot about you. We understand that, especially data security, they believe that Scienzy will never screw that up. That I think that brand around has been our biggest differentiation. And now with the scale that we have, people believe that Sciencey runs AI at a scale, which is not easy. So running AI is easy, but running AI at a scale that Sciencey runs is not easy, because again, this is a little bit technical, but AI softwares require a lot of compute, which means that your infra has to be super optimized to be able to run very, very large scale bank operation kind of scale AI. So I think that's the third thing that now I think banks have started to realize and understand, that if it's about scale, then Sciencey has got it right. We should not work with an experimental company coming from outside who maybe is good at AI but has never seen banking scale. So I think those three things in my mind is uh, how we differentiate from outside.
Natural follow-up question, because you now refer to it as that. Can you give an idea of what kind of scale you guys are running at in terms of, if you think about your backend infrastructure today?
Yeah.
And you use the word APIs in your past talk track also. Either, I don't know whether the number of services that get involved, number of API hits, what kind of scale does your infrastructure support today?
So today we support about 400 queries per second, and we have seen about 240 queries per second in production. Also on one of the days, this was, of course, India versus Pakistan T20 match day. But at 400 QPS, just to give an example, this is only 10% of what MasterCard and Visa have to do. So they support 5,000 QPS.
Wow.
So globally. So basically the scale you are at is at 10%, roughly 10% of the scale MasterCard and Visa network is. And from a technology point of view, they are just making network calls. You are actually doing high-end compute at 400 QPS. So the infra right now, I think is, and now that we are scaling, I think we'll be very close to 30% of the scale. And where we are going is basically that the way MasterCard and Visa has built an infra which supports payments, you are basically building an infra which will support banking automation globally.
Ankit, let me shift focus a little bit, and I'll expand your realm beyond India for a minute now. I remember that many years back, and this is sort of going back to 2018 itself now, that, or maybe even earlier, you got companies like MasterCard to notice your capabilities, right? And they are a giant in the world, right? Help me understand, how did that happen? And how difficult was it to partner with a global giant like that?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to this no code narrative. I think it is a very undersold narrative in the world. But if you talk to anybody, including MasterCard, everyone feels the same pain, that classic SaaS apps don't fit the problem that they are hearing from customers. So actually they had been scouting for a merchant onboarding product across the world. And they talked to all companies in US, Europe, and the head of products for acceptance, which is basically all these POS instruments that you're selling. So that's acceptance part of the business for MasterCard. So head of products for that was just visiting India and the team, and somebody in the team said, why don't you just meet Sciencey? We have been hearing about them. Some customer of ours is using them. And when we did a product demo to him, he was just blown away. He said, I've never seen something like this in any place I've gone to. And the main part there was that this no code SaaS capability, that every country will have slightly different way to onboard, will have slightly different documents, will have slightly different rules. Even within the same country, different acquiring banks would want to do different rules.
Yeah.
And if you go traditional IT way, so when they partner with a IT service provider, it's too costly, too long, regulations change too fast, and it just doesn't work. That is in fact what everyone is saying, complaining about, that IT, general IT doesn't work for them. They go to any SaaS player, any identity player in US, their solution is too simple, too straightforward, doesn't work for the bank. And I think that view of no code SaaS is what MasterCard truly loved. And that is what they got partner. Like the product was the single thing that got them to partner. They didn't care how small you were, what customers you had. Like it was simply the product. And their product team then partnered with you. Of course, now we have more inroads into MasterCard, but that was the only single thing. Because of that, they also displayed us to their board, because at their board level, one of the key goals is increasing acceptance globally. And one of the big obstacles of acceptance is the arduous KYC and the cost of KYC. So those two major things is, they said, we have the product which we have already spent about $10 million trying to build in-house. and we have been scouting so much and we have still not found this product. So that was the aha moment for them, and that is what led to this partnership.
Quite amazing. Quite amazing. Ankit, on the topic of outside India, then also curious to know how did you? I mean, this is very tough for most SaaS companies. How did you land your first customer outside India?
One of the things that goes into especially financial services customer is that you have to understand regulation of that country. So one of the long hard works we did is that we read all the regulation, and our first customer was in Dubai. We knew more about regulation in Dubai than the customer, and we would then go and say, okay, yeah, please set up a meeting with your legal team. We are happy to chat with them. And I think that kind of preparation is what again customers then feel, this company is not just a tech company trying to sell me a solution. They really have thought about this and really are problem solving, and you're able to differentiate from the noise that is there around IT service vendors servicing banks. So I think was key. Even now when we target a geography like US, the one of the major hirings we are now wanting to do is a lawyer in US, because US regulation is just one of the most complicated regulations in financial services globally. So we have realized that this is very, very critical in our sales process, sales pitch. And then of course we got a lot more customers. So it's like an investment you make in that geography, and then you're able to reap a lot more.
Ankit, I have only a few questions left, and I'm going to take you now sort of both backward and forward at a slightly 50,000 foot level for a minute, which is that, having traversed the journey that you have so far, and honestly, you guys have built an incredible SaaS company. But every journey has some seminal moments, which you can say were the turning points or some of the massive achievements to get to where you are, right? I'm sure even if you don't publicly do so, internally within the founders group, etc., I'm sure you admit that, look, these were the big moments. As we now go back and look at since the start, what have been some of these seminal moments?
From starting from beginning, I talked about RBI. That was definitely big. Then like ICICI signing you on was big. After that, I think Alok, you coming on the board, I think was big.
Thank you for saying so.
In order of chronology, and I think more than that, I think so this is crazy times, right? All of us know these are crazy times, but at that time, Indian SaaS was not as big, and second, if you didn't have US revenue, it was very hard to raise money, and you are not that sexy company at all. So I think at that time when you came in, I think it was a very important moment because we had the product, we had the customer, but we needed money to scale it. Then after that, I think HDFC signing you on for a very important part of their, let's say, workflow, right? Like even now, while it's not public, and there are reasons why we also don't want it to be public very, very quickly, but we are doing very, very good work in HDFC. It's as important to them maybe as core banking. So I think that I think is something that not only gives you money, of course, but it gives you huge confidence.
Yeah.
Because a bank of that scale, every touch point you're taking over, there's so much automation you're doing. So you see that automation really bringing dividends, bringing ROI. It's no longer a talk or a chat that you go and say in a sales pitch. So I think that I think would be the fourth big moment. Fifth, I think big moment after that was doing a global sales. Again, the big question always is, okay, but can you sell globally? So that I think fifth one was a big, once you sold something outside India. Then recently, I think we have been seeing a lot of lead conversion outside India. Of late, I think we have closed now 11 customers in last 3 months. So while I'll say none of them alone is, I think, a big one. But I think what now we have got in partnerships, even the goals that of course, we showed you in the partnerships, because now we believe that it's an engine that's kicking for us really, really well, and we can bet on that engine. I think that's another moment that's recently happened, which I think is a very important seminal moment in the history of the company. And hopefully, if there are a few things down the road, but hopefully if we sign one of the large US organizations next year, then I think that will be again a huge moment in history for us.
Ankit, if you look at the last, I would say probably a year, in a way somewhat like SaaS,
Hmm.
but fintech has been a booming space in India. I think we are seeing a revolution happening in the country in many ways.
That's true.
And while a lot of your focus has been on the large banks early on, but if you look at both India and globally,
Hmm.
what new opportunities are you seeing for Scienzy with this fintech boom?
Yeah, no, I think last year has been a total mindset breaker for us as well, right? We were a very, very traditional financial services focused company. So what we are realizing is that fintech companies are digital from day one. So even if they have, let's say, 20% of the size of a bank, but that 20% is completely digital. Versus a bank, even though they have huge volumes, but they're still on their digital adoption journey. They're still at 5%, 10%, 15% of their journey. So even though these fintechs may not be large when it comes to business sizes, but from our software point of view, they are actually as large as some of these banks, even today. And now we see two clear customer personas, that one is traditional financial services who are going digital, and the second is these companies who are creating niches for themselves, but 100% of that is digital. And the scale that India has, we definitely underestimated it. When we started off, we were thinking India is like a 70-75 million revenue at best case scenario market, and of course you can get 30% of it. Now I think when we redid the numbers, we have realized it's like a 400 million revenue market. And um, I mean, India, everyone, in my view, everyone is underestimating the India market size, because the way it's growing, there's no end to this. Like every day, you are able to get a new customer, which is large. Every day, there seems to be no end to this so-called ceiling. So, which means that the ceiling has been grossly underestimated in India. So, I think this year has changed our mindset a little bit, in a way that we no longer believe that India is just, let's say, something that, okay, will give you the cash to grow. I think India is in itself has the potential to be 100 million business. And therefore, the leadership that we have hired now is in a way that we have give enough to India. We don't under shorthand India at all.
Given where Scienzy has reached now, if you were to now put your sort of, I don't know what's the right word to say, crystal ball gazing hat or a telescopic hat, what are the big things you are betting on next now for Scienzy?
The main areas that we are seeing, as I said, one is that I think everyone underestimated, in my view, financial services. There are two major trends that's happening in financial services, which will completely unlock financial services and the software landscape around the financial services. One is digitization and automation, which means that the entire banking operations needs to be a real-time digital API. There can no longer be a human operations. And second is that consumers will buy financial products from a third party app where they're doing some other transaction. Like if I'm buying a car, I'll buy a car loan. If I'm going for travel, I'll get a travel loan, etc., etc. And these two trends means there should be no branch. Like, of course, there would be branches, but there should be not much branches, and operations should go away. And there's so much software that has been built, and processes that have been built around the current view of how financial services is, which needs to be unlocked. And there's this great opportunity to build the underlying principles of this embedded digital finance world. And so I was also telling this to a team that we are in a very critical moment of history, that when we look back, we'll say, that this company is now the bedrock of this embedded finance world. And Scienzy today is a moment where you could be that. So as a team, we should not think, okay, we'll grow to X, we'll raise money. That is all, okay, that will happen as part of the journey. You have to say 10 years down the line, I want to be this company. I want to be this company that built the bedrock of embedded financial services. And people will say, okay, if you have to be embedded financial services, Scienzy is the stack on which you work. Like you have to become the pinnacle of embedded digital financial services world. So that is the ceiling that we have put now, the bar that we have put now. And all our efforts now are towards taking the company from a company that's now a good enterprise SaaS company working with customers to something that becomes the bedrock of embedded digital financial services world.
By the way, that's all I had as questions. I'll also tell you that, many of times as investors, we assume we know a lot about every company we are in. But, these discussions actually tell us a lot about the company ourselves. Forget anybody else who will get to know or not. No, really enjoyed it.